Rocking and rolling.
Called back together again, except Tyler is maybe not going to be here.
Let's see.
We may be in and out.
Going live right now. Oh, here we go.
Here we go! The best rule. Name a better rule than here we go.
Rising crescendo.
Damn it.
Better rule or better sounding rule?
Better sounding rule.
Here we go sounds pretty hype.
Yeah,
I
it
say
is
that
Pretty good.
all the time, honestly.
But also, it itches.
true. The parasite of Ooga Booga.
Vengeance of the Unchained, dude. That's what the King's Explosion is called.
It's pretty unchained.
Oh, sorry. Vengeance of the Enchained? Alright, that makes way more sense. I guess
You fucking idiot.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Oh, we are live. My bad. You
Whatever.
absolute buffoon. You silly goose.
Yeah, you goofy goober.
You goofy goober.
Alright.
You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to Best in Faction.
The next generation.
a podcast where we celebrate the buffest of robots.
Hello.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
And we are back. Took a week off last week to do a bunch of crazy stuff. Still doing a bunch of crazy stuff in this wild, wild west of a meta that we call Nephilim. We got a little bit of a shorter show for you. Just going to check in a little bit, see how everyone's doing. I would acknowledge on the front end, I am not in the strongest of internet connections right now. So if I am a bit intermittent, my apologies for that. Hopefully Lucas and Nick can pick up the slack there. Anyway, with that all said and done, how you boys doing? I haven't seen y'all in a while. How you doing, Lucas?
I'm doing pretty good. I've started to try to fit Warhammer games in and among my work schedule, which is a skill that I've never had to learn before. So that's a little challenging, but I am getting some games scheduled. I'm playing against a lot of CSM right now, which is really fun. Because CSM are looking like they are a melee trading midfield control army with like no shooting. And so those games are always a really fun puzzle of positioning and trying to figure that all out. It's just skill set that I'm definitely lacking in from being used to just running at people Hail Mary and then, having my mistakes turned on me by a very experienced melee player has been eye-opening. So it's good to learn a new skill set regarding melee trading with another really good melee army. But yeah, so I'm playing lots of games against CSM, and I'm just kind of chilling, getting ready for some upcoming tournaments in the next couple weeks, which I'm really excited about. What about you, Nick? How are you doing recently?
Doing well, dude. I've been enjoying my summer job, working at a camp teaching students how to program video games, which is like a fun little activity. Yeah. So I've been enjoying that. Same like you. Been really busy at work during the day, so like coming home and sheltering in our cool basement, and then playing some Warhammer games. So our buddy Tanner is finally done with school, so he can play again, and he has been playing pretty much like every day with us, which is awesome. It's kind of like we trade off. Yeah, I super excited to be tinkering with lists again and back to playing games. What about Tyler? I know you've been pretty out of it the past few weeks. How have you been doing?
Yeah, I've been a bit all over the place. I'm in rural Mexico right now. I was in Tennessee for some lab work last week, and then before then, I feel like I was doing something else as well. It's been a bit of a blur. So I haven't been playing a lot of games lately, but that means that I've been deep down the theory crafting hole. And man, I've got a whole lot of crazy, wacky jank. I think that I am ready to re-embrace my own right? Like, it was nice to get fully out of my comfort zone. We talked about this last week with when I went to that Teams event and played all Warriors, and that all Warriors list, really far away from my roots as I possibly could be. And now I'm ready to slingshot all the way back to my super comfort zone of all the jank that I can get my hands on, some amount of interesting kill power to catch some people off guard. So I'm very excited about where things are going. I'm feeling like myself again in 40k, which I wasn't for a minute in Nephilim. So we'll see. Terrible, and I'll go back to square one. But I'm very excited to get some games in coming up, especially as I will be returning to the Pacific Northwest in about a month's time. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that list writing phase can be difficult to get stuck in because you're writing like 20 lists and you're like, what is good in this? And then that first game you play, maybe you find out like, oh wow, this like 200 points is terrible. So we got to get some games in for you soon so you can start figuring it out.
Yeah. I need to play into the new CSM, man. I have no reps into them yet, and they look like so much.
Honestly,
really
one of my favorite armies to play into. Lucas and I were just talking about this the other night. There was a string of Custodes, Tau, Harlequins, Nids, where every codex was just like busted, and it was like, what is happening? And CSM come out, and they're good, but they're not busted. So they feel really fun to play into because like, wow, these guys are shaking up the meta. Their book is so deep. There's so many different things in it that it's like every game you're like, all right, I'm playing into CSM again. They're like, well, yeah, but this time you're playing against Ward Bearers. And it's like, well, what do you do? And it's a super fun puzzle to have been figuring out. And it's also nice that we got Tanner and like Kim who were just like, throwing all these different CSM lists in there, like our chat all the time. So
yeah,
playing against the different lists has been really fun.
It's really cool how diverse the book is, in my opinion. It seems like we're going on a little CSM tangent to begin with, but this is just a rambling podcast anyway. So let's just dive right in. It's cool after Nick was talking about those 4 codexes in a row that were all kind of increasing levels of BS and not fun, in my opinion. A lot of those codexes had like 1 or 2 subfactions that were so far up and removed from the other ones that you associated the codex with the subfaction. So like Custodes, it was just Emperor's Chosen. For Tau, it was like Farsight Enclave / Tau Sept. For Harlequins, it was Light. And then for Tyranids, it was, Kraken was definitely solid as well, but most people were just playing Leviathan.
You also skipped Hail of Doom.
Right. Yeah, Eldar was basically a couple guys playing Ulthway, mad respect to them, and then everyone else playing Hail of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
CSM, it's like Word Bearers are sick, Black Legion are sick, Iron Warriors are sick, Emperor's Children are sick, and then there's probably some other sub
Creations of Bile.
Creations of Bile seem real strong on paper.
Yeah.
Man, if that faction doesn't get darked, I'm scared.
I'm pretty scared as well.
And then you got like Abaddon is sick. Like the demon weapons are all pretty sick.
Yeah, and Chaos Space Marines are such like a soup army. Other potentials out there, Everyone's talking about what we can put Abaddon into. Like, we got a whole Demons Codex coming up soon, so like this book being deep and being reasonably seems like maybe we'll eat our words in a month about that, but I'm very excited to play into it.
Dude, they're a soup army and a half still. Tanner shared this list with me the other day that had like Bellicor, Morty, and Abaddon in it. I'm like, how the hell is this legal? And he's like, I don't know, some chaos guy told me it was. And I'm like, all right.
Like, why?
Seems to be the chaos MO, dude. Some guy somewhere
illegal?
figured out the codex and then tells everyone how it works.
Yeah, you can take a Nurgle detachment. That has to be how you do it because you can't take 2 Supreme Commands.
Yeah, but it's like they also got it's just like super crack. He's playing a deck hammer to try to counter me. I'm very excited.
I think that's the one he just sent me. He was like, that I'm gonna play.
Yeah,
and
it's got like Lucius and the smelly guy in it too, and the Fellblight Spawn.
I'm just gonna read it off because I got it right here because it's funny. But yeah, it's Lucius, Squad of Noise Boys, and a Helldrake, and then it's Mortarion, and then it's a Nurgle Urglement of Ferryman with Abaddon, Bellicor, 3 Nurglings on Tallyman. What?
Very funny.
How many assassinate points does this give up?
Doesn't matter. It tries to kill you or it dies.
Lucius, Morty, Abby, Belly, Foulblight, Spawn, Tallyman.
Yeah, all of them.
In assassinate points.
Yeah.
Though for the record, my current also have 6 characters, so I'm not really one to talk.
Mine's got 5 characters, so
has a few more models than that. Ooh, spicy.
yeah, have fun taking assassinating as me though.
Lucas, you're getting more characters these days too.
That's right. Sorry, you caught me mid-chew. Yeah, I am. I am currently working. Don't laugh at me, Nick. Yeah, I'm currently working on a list with a Smasher Squig because I realized here. Let me show you.
Hey, it's the boy.
This is the face of a man who splatters Abaddon.
Yeah, so what does the Smash Squig
That's the
do?
face of mortals in the charge phase, boys. So this guy is meant to counter people with wound caps, phase locks, basically. So Abaddon, Catan are all a real problem for Goths because Goths only do damage in basically one phase. So being able to pretty reliably, or not pretty reliably, like half the time slap 3 wounds on Abaddon / Catan in the charge phase is a really big deal. Yeah, so he's another character I'm running. I'm also picking back up the Big Mech because I'm tired of getting shot by Meltaguns and not getting saves. So
aren't we all?
The list has a few less orcs and a few more support / tech characters, which is not usually the direction I like going, but unfortunately the way I have to do things now.
Yeah, that seems like an interesting trend. I've been seeing a lot more toys and a lot less boys in lists across the meta right now. People seem more interested in tech pieces than they have been in a while, and I'm always very excited about that because pieces are where I like them.
Yep.
I don't have the cerebral capacity for a joke. They're good. So that's fine.
Yeah, I think you need more tech pieces now because you don't have like as much, resources for stratagems or.
You can't CP it, so you got to have it on the data sheets. Makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like a lot of tech pieces are also scoring you some sort of secondary, which is important because like a lot of the good secondaries got tanked.
Yeah.
Or when you're playing against people who score an auto 42, you got to like have something that can score a 12.
Speaking of those people, you want to tell us a little bit about your recent exploits? Our new robot overlords, Mr. Olsen Johnson?
Oh man, dude. So yeah, I've played. Let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've played like 10 games with Necron so far.
Nice.
With like
10
3
Nephilim
different
games, you mean, right?
10 Nephilim games. Yeah. 10 forever. Yeah 10 Nephilim games. I played with 3 different lists. So, I mean, yeah, we can just talk about like my thoughts about them. Jump right in if you got any questions.
Go right in,
I'd
man.
love to. Yeah. I mean, first off, yeah, their secondaries are crazy. Lucas and I were talking about it. I'm like, okay, they seem pretty good. Like my first couple of games, I've just been picking like 3 Necron faction secondaries. Like even if my opponent like kind of gives something up, I want to see if I can just still score like max points with these secondaries. That sort of thing. For those who don't know, let's go over them real quick. Though we got, I think, the most offensive, which is Purge the Vermin, and that one is at the end of your turn. You score a point for each table quarter that's cleared, and another point if your DZ is cleared. And yes, you can score at turn 1. So you just get 3 points turn 1. Very goofy. What else? There's Treasures of the
If you're playing
Aeon.
on Data Scry Salvage, my friend, then you would only get 2 points.
That is actually, yeah. That
really,
is, I
really
played that the other
hard.
day. Yeah. I actually almost didn't pick Purge, but the way I looked at it, I'm like, if you throw something in that like bottom corner to deny a point from me, like you're not coming over to like the castle of my army, so I'm kind of okay with that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
That was like the one mission where I'm like, oh, this like might not be where Purge is great, but like every other mission, it's been ludicrous. I've just gotten 3 on it every turn, until I table them, and then I get 5. But yeah, so that's Purge. Treasures of the Aeons, which it's after the resolve pre-game stuff. So like after you know who's going first to do all your pre-game moves and stuff, your opponent picks 3 objective markers that aren't in either player's deployment zone, and those become the Treasures of the Aeons. At the end of your turn as the Necron player, if you hold 1, you get 2 points. If you hold 2, you get 3 points. And if you hold 3, all 3, you get 5 points. Which it usually ends up being, I mean, on 5 objective missions, it's just stranglehold. It's just hold the one closest to your DZ in the middle at the end of your turn. Every turn, get 15. There you go. Except like late game, you can like go get 5. So you could be like, I'm not going to go to the middle this turn. And then just like late game, be like, all right, now I'm going to like go get all 3 after tabling you and then get 5. On Sixers, it's a little tough because your opponent picks the 2 on their side of the board and then like your most exposed one on your side of the board, but it's still just like a 10 for sitting on your side of the board, which is dumb. And then what else? Ancient Machineries. This one I think is like the least egregious, honestly. It's the combo is that because it's all obsec, it's so good. It's the same kind of thing where so it's every objective marker outside your DZ you can perform the action on. You can perform it with any core or canoptech unit. It completes at the end of your turn if you're obsec, and end your next command phase if you're not. You can't start the action unless you control the point, though. So I mean, the trick is usually like you throw obsec on there, your opponent doesn't have obsec, you're like, woohoo, ancient machineries, and you get 4. You can't do it multiple places at once. You have to kind of plan it out. It's usually a 12. Like I usually get like if on a 5 objective mission, I usually get the 2 over there and then the 1 on mine, and then I never really get to my opponent's DC. So pretty safe 12. On Sixers, it's very it's a guaranteed 8, and sometimes it's a 16, depending on how it works, but it's usually a 12. I think that one has a little bit more counterplay than people realize because as a Necron player, you have to control the objective to start it. I found sometimes that people just put 5 troops on an objective on their side of the board. I'm like, well, I can't clear them before the end of the movement phase, so I don't get to start the action. Because I'm usually using 3-man squads of Tomb Blades that are very fast, but it's only 3 obsec models. So I think what it is, though, is you can just kind of, eventually clear their stuff and still get a 12 on it. And then the last one, very fun one, Code of Combat, is the one where nobles killing stuff with range attacks gets you 3 points and killing stuff with melee attacks gets you 4 points. That one, I think, is also pretty crazy because it's not capped. And what it does is it feels crazy when you play against it because the Necron player is going to take it if they think they can score well against you. You're not going to you're not going to see it against knights or something, anything where the king is going to maybe instantly die. Or if you're playing not a lot of MSU, I'm not going to take Code of Combat because it's not going to be good to you. But when you're playing a bunch of 5-man trading squads, I'm going to take it. I'm going to go kill 3 of them and score 9, and you're going to be like, holy shit, this is crazy. So that's where it gets good. But yeah, that's the secondaries. They've all felt very strong. I do sometimes just pick what my opponent gives up still. Oh, you give up no prisoners or assassinate? Cool, I'll table you and get that. I haven't picked banners yet ever over ancient machineries. I think ancient machineries is better. It's always been a 12. Yeah, I haven't lost any games yet with this list. I expect to soon. I'm sure that I think Nids, T-Suns, and Grey Knights are going to be a pretty hard counter, and I haven't played against any of them yet. But yeah, that's my experience with the secondaries. They're all pretty silly, and I think that is 50% of why Necrons are doing so well right now is they just kind of they are a really great army at counterpunching because they aren't super fast, but the Scorpex are decently fast. And the Catan, and I guess we should probably talk about the lists I'm playing and the success I'm having with it. But yeah, it pretty much says I'm going to sit here on my side of the board and score 42 on secondaries and 8 on primary every turn. You have to come over here and deal with me. And if you can't come over here and deal with a decisive blow, I'm going to kill whatever you threw over here instantly. And if you rush your whole army at me and mess up, I'm going to kill your whole army. Maybe not necessarily. Lucas and I haven't played the Orc Necron matchup yet. And I'm worried he might be able to throw, enough meat into my lines that I can't clear all of it. But the King's Fight Last is so strong offensively. That paired with the Scorpex squad and then another Scorpex squad charging somewhere. And then you have a Catan maybe blocking another squad. So you have all right, Scorpex delete this. Catan does some damage and also stops this unit in its tracks. And then King and Scorpex delete this. You've lost 2 units and you have 2 units tied up with my Catan. Past you don't do anything. Cool. Then my Scorpex and King charge and kill the rest of your stuff. So it's wild. Very fun.
Fascinating. So I'm curious then what you think has the power to stop this. You're talking about Grey Knights, Necrons, and it's T-Suns and Nids. Is that a Mortals thing or what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I know one bad matchup. Knights is very bad. That was the one game where I basically had to flip a coin and it came up in my favor, so I won. But I just got shot to hell and I just ran the king out and made a 9-inch charge, and that kept me in the game. So that's been my experience with Knights. so I'm a little bit worried about them. I think Grey Knights and T-Suns, yeah, the psychic phase damage is what's tough. The Catan are really strong when your opponent only does damage in like 1 or 2 phases, but T-Suns and Grey Knights are, active in 3 phases. And they're also decently durable armies. So, they're going to require a bit of firepower to shift. I also don't like mortals because I don't get to reanimate from them. So they just get to like throw mine bullets at the Scorpex and my other, units, and they just die. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes, because I think I have to play way more defensively in those matchups, which is a bummer, because I like to like pretend I'm playing defensively, and then when you cross the midline, like run at you.
It's pretty scary for Grey Knights, though, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
they are now worse secondaries than you. Grey Knights got their secondaries a little bit nerfed in Nephilim, and they're going to have to run at you, and you actually have great tools to kill them, like Scorpex with AP3, AP4, reroll the wound. That kills some paladins.
Yeah.
Especially if you use the king to like shut down armored resilience or something like that. Those paladins are just like basic ass terminators, and then you're killing every single one of them.
I think, yeah, it's not the paladins I'm ridiculously worried about. It's more the mortals Libby, because that guy can just teleport somewhere and just like go and throw a chunk of hole in my army.
The thing I've learned about him is if you maybe it's a bait for the Grey Knight player, but like, what if you just let him take his pound of flesh and then kill him? Then he's traded 1 for 1.
Yeah, I think that's the play. And it's just like, don't get antsy with the Catan. Like the Catan are perfectly content just sitting behind the walls until their time to shine. Like, yes, they can get 1 turn by the Grey Knight player, but they have to put in a lot of resources to pull that off. And it's like, hopefully then that means that in those turns that they're putting the resources in the Catan, they're not putting the resources into the rest of my army.
Yeah.
So, but if you just wander, like the thing I like about Catan, like 1 and 2 phase armies, is like you kind of just wander around like idiots, and your opponent's like, "Oh my god, what do I do?" And then they just like are this durable front line that keeps your opponent back. But you can't do that in the Grey Knights. If a Catan wanders out there alone, he's just going to die, and the Grey Knight players will like, "Cool, pass to you. You did nothing."
That's definitely true. Yep, they're definitely wave 2 or 3 as opposed to wave 1, how they would be in like Blood Angels or Orcs or something like that.
That's how I felt about the Catan into Eldar as well. Is they were content just sitting behind walls, like wrapped up and stuff, and like dropping stars on people. We need to talk about Sky falling stars. By the way,
that power that power is broken.
That is, yeah, in my opinion, why Catan are perfectly finely pointed where they're at.
You want to walk us through how it works for those for the uninitiated?
We're talking about hard matchups. We can come back to that. Nids are another hard matchup, I think, because the durability of the warriors, right? Access to -1 damage, perma transhuman, 5-up feel no pain, like, and big squads. They can definitely spike. Like, I need the King's wound rerolls for the Scorpex to do anything there. So I'm kind of like, you're putting your whole army forward, and then I respond with my whole army. And if I like bounce, then big bummer. The Reaper guy, I kind of just have to like let him kill what he wants to kill. He can also 1-phase Catan, so same thing there. I can't just have the Catan run around like idiots. Like the Catan have to like come out with my army as like quarterbacks rather than like, frontliners. I do think the Necron player can come out on top because, again, I think the Nids player has worse secondaries and they have to go pressure the Necron player. So it's like, it's kind of like that, this strange dance of they get close enough to you, but not too close. So like maybe like you want to charge, and then maybe if you don't charge, they like pounce on you. But like, it's kind of this interesting distance thing I've learned where smart players will keep like, they'll be like, hey, you can charge me with 9-inch charges on your Scorpex. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to bet the game on that. And then they come running at me next turn. So it's like, do I back up? And like, then they just walk forward a little bit again. I think that's the correct answer though. I think if I just back up and they don't, they just keep waiting, they lose. So eventually they have to pull the trigger, which is a bummer because I do like pulling the trigger. Like playing Harlequins was very fun because you got to do that all the time. And it's very weird going back to an army that can't do that anymore. But it's like once your opponent pulls the trigger, you're like, and my turn, and then you kill them. But yeah, that's kind of how that works. Catan powers. Do we want to talk about Catan powers?
Please enlighten us.
Tell us about Sky Falling Stars, because let's go to like most egregious to least egregious.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, you want most egregious here? All right. So Catan powers are active at the end of your movement phase. You can't activate them if you advance or fall back. Which that's a kind of cool thing is like you can tag a Catan and maybe be like, hey dude, if you stay here next turn, you're dead. But then if you run away, you can't do anything. That's an interesting thing for playing against Catan, I guess. Yeah, let's talk about Catan powers. Every Catan knows 2. You can't repeat like which one knows the same. Like you can't assign the same power until you've assigned all 6. So since I only have 2 in my list, I'm only assigning 4, and I'm actually really only assigning 3 because the Void Dragon comes with a named power. But there is a very cool stratagem called I think Strange Echoes, where in your command phase you can spend a CP to swap a Catan power with another one from the list. So very easy way to just switch into 2 of a power that is very strong, such as Sky of Falling Stars. So these are activated at the end of the Crown player's movement phase. Sky of Falling Stars selects up to 3 enemy units within 24 of the Catan. Does not need line of sight, just 3 enemy units within 24. You roll a dice, and d6, and if it is less than the number of models in that unit, they suffer d3 mortal wounds, except a 6 always fails. So you have a 1 in 6 chance to fail, and then other than that, you have to roll under the number of models in their unit, and then they take d3 mortals. So yeah,
So
pretty
like
much
picture a sister's deployment. And then picture 2 Catan 24 inches away, dropping 12 mortals on them every turn.
yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, Sisters, Eldar, Harlequin. Harlequins are in their cars, but yeah. One wound model armies do not like this power. And even like Marines don't like this power. Like
Definitely not.
What is it? I played it into Death Guard. I played it into what was it? Terminus S, which is like a little bit trolly, because like the Plague Marine spam is so much stronger right now, I think. But I mean, just like I was like, all right, stars on Blight Lords, Plague Marines, Plague Marines. Okay, kill a Blight Lord, kill a Plague Marine, kill a Plague Marine. All right, next guy, stars on Blight Lords, Plague Marine, Plague Marine. Okay, kill a Blight Lord, do a wound to a Plague Marine, kill a Plague Marine. Okay, cool. And he just did that every turn, and he's like, cool, good game.
Yeah, there's no like blocking with psychic powers. There's no hiding out of line of sight.
Yeah,
This is happening to you.
Outside of 32 inches of both of these 60mm bases that are dead center in the table. Easy.
Yeah. I hate out of line of sight shooting. I think it is the most boring and annoying rule in the game. And I'm sorry that this is just that, but better. But hell, I'm going to play with it until they get rid of it. So, because I want to drop some stars on people. The text on this is also awesome. They like reach out to the depths of space and like summon stars, and just they fall out of the sky and just plummet into like your enemy's ranks. That's what Catan's doing.
I will say the fact that you dropped a literal star onto the battlefield and it landed on my dude and he took a mortal wound is not exactly impressive.
Yeah, you know that's pretty fair. Yeah. So that's Sky Falling Stars. What do you think's the next most egregious one, Lucas?
Time Zero, because 1 out of every 4 games, it's going to be incredibly tilting for the
Tyler, you ever heard of Time Zero?
No, don't know that I have.
All right.
It's in one direction. But other than that, I'm not so sure.
This is a power you select an enemy unit with an 18 invisible. All right, so we need visibility this time. No more ignore LOS shenanigans.
How can he be visible if the Catan don't have eyes?
Well, I don't know.
Damn.
So I guess, true line of sight, imagine he dies. So with an 18, you roll a d6. If your result equals or exceeds the wounds characteristic of any models in that enemy unit, your opponent selects a model in that unit to be destroyed. This can target characters. So if you have a 4 wound or 5 wound character, I go, hey, roll equal to your wounds characteristic, and if I roll equal to or above, you are erased from the timeline.
Remind me to hide my...
Your Magus?
My Magus, yeah, him too.
So this is my answer to Death Guard, because the Foul Blight spawn is a big problem for my army, because he has a very large aura of no charge, and he also has 4 wounds. Also, Death Guard's threat range is 17 inches. So my Catans sit 18 inches away, and they go coin flip to win the game. Very funny. It's also just good into like big wound models. Like you just go, oh, that's a funny Terminator there. 3 up, he's dead. No, you don't get feel no pains against this. Something we were talking about was like the big tanky Terminator brick that everyone's playing right now. Like ward bearers are a big problem, I think, for my list because they have a 5 field defense against mortals. They also have a relic for no rerolls, like in melee, which is how I do my damage because I have full wound rerolls. Time Zero is just a 3-up to remove a Terminator from the game. So I just go 3-up, 3-up. All right, 2 Terminators are gone. Now there's only 8.
Yeah, the Terminator brick's like, I'm -1 to hit, no rerolls, -1 to wound, 5-up field of pain, 3 wounds, and you're like, okay, end of the movement phase, pick up 2 of them for free.
Yeah, so that's Time Zero. Looking very much forward to erasing people from the timeline. So yeah,
you know, as goofy as that one is, at least it has it's just also got the silly aspect of like you're deleting someone from existence.
It is pretty funny. All these powers are pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about any more? Are there any more that are exciting?
There are a bunch more that are just like pick a unit and do D3 mortals.
There's one more that I like to talk about.
Sure.
Which is Cosmic Fire. So Cosmic Fire is you roll a d6 for every enemy unit within 9 of the Catan, and on a 4-up they take d3 mortal wounds. Because something I've heard about into Necrons is rush your whole army at them, right? Table them before turn 3. If I see my opponent pick their whole army up and move them towards me, I'm going to go switch to Cosmic Fire. On turn 1, on turn 2, switch to Cosmic Fire. Okay, cool. Now turn 3, like when we're fighting, my Catan are just going into the middle of your army, and every unit 4-up take D3 mortals twice. Seems good.
Yeah, it does.
So those are my 3 favorite powers from them. The other 3 are okay. There's one that sucks, Seismic Assault, so that one's bad. Yeah, other than that, Thunderbolt, Meteor, those ones are funny. There's also a 1 CP stratagem for after you've manifested a Catan power, roll a d6 and cast a random power based off that number. So Krons are swimming in CP right now because the king gives you 3 to just by taking him. So there's sometimes I'll like look at the turn. I'm like, oh, it's turn 3. I have 6 CP. I guess I'll cast a random power. Sounds good to me.
If I understand correctly, there are some cracked individuals who, understanding that this king gives 3 CP, they take an Outrider into Vanguard and just say, forget about all the troops choices. Those guys are terrible.
I do have a list right now that it's an Outrider and a Vanguard, yep.
I have 0 troop slots, and I have 8 fast attack, 8 elites.
Yep.
Let's go.
So...
all right, what's next on the Necron menu, Nick? Like, we talked about Catan. On the show previously, we talked about Scorpex and the King. Should we talk about Tomb Blades? That's something that people have not really seen. And I'm still seeing Scarabs in folks' lists. Why don't you espouse the Tomb Blade for a few minutes here? Scarabs
are good, but they are worse than Tomb Blades. I think we talked about this at the start of Nephilim like a few weeks ago. It was just you and I was like, I might play Tomb Blades. Tomb Blades went down 5 points in chapter approved. They've always been core, which is cool. They are, all obsec because the whole army is all obsec, which is awesome. But Ancient Machinery is now being able to complete at the end of your turn if you're obsec is great. These guys go 14 inches, 15 inches if you have the Sudden Storm Protocol, 16 inches if they started their movement within 6 of the King. And they also can pregame 6. They can also advance and shoot. They can't advance in action, so you're probably not really advancing them. So these guys are going 16. Maybe they're pregame moving, so they're going, 6 plus 5, 15, so 21. They're rocketing over to like an objective on your opponent's side of the board, and they're going, all right, this is mine. 20 points for that. T5, 2 wounds, 4-up armor, -1 hit against shooting. They also have 6 shots at 501, 18-inch range. So another part of the Sudden Storm Protocol. A lot of my games, that is the protocol I choose to leave out the entire game. That's a new change that we got in the Balanced Status slate. You declare which half of the protocol you're going to use at the start of each of the battle rounds. So you could be like, I'm going to be +1 move this turn, or I'm going to be action and shoot. And there's sometimes I'm like, I don't need the +1 move this turn. So I just rocket the Tomb Blades out to an objective, Ancient Machineries, and just, shoot 18 shots while I'm at it. Pretty useful.
Yeah, anything that's not like at least a 3-up armor save is not going to enjoy Tomb Blades shooting at it. Yeah. I mean, they don't have any rerolls to wound, but they just like, if you take a squad of 5, that's like 30 shots.
Yeah.
Shooting.
I have 3 squads of 3. There are some people I see taking 3 squads of 5, and I do not think that is a bad idea. Since they're core, the king can just slap, my will be done on them, and he's like, all right, go, my children, rocket out 16, you hit on 2s, or if you want to advance, go back to hitting on 3s because your weapons are assault. And yeah, you can cut some angles on some people. when I've told people, I'm like, yeah, my Tomb Blades have a threat range of like 22 plus D6 turn 1. They're like, oh. Also, 1 CP turn off cover for a unit. I think I had like a squad of Tomb Blades and some Immortals shoot some Warp Talons the other day. And I killed like 4 in shooting. And I'm like, yeah, get rid of your cover and bye.
Yep.
Super useful to just like chip at your opponent's squads with this unit that's also scoring you 6 points on 4 on ancient machineries and 2 on treasures.
I keep
Good.
seeing Scarabs and I'm not sure why, man. Like, compare. I know that intercessors aren't very good right now, but an intercessor is 20 points if I'm not mistaken, and a Tomb Blade is also 20 points, and the Tomb Blade also has Obsec, moves 10 inches faster, punches basically the same in melee. Like, no one's using intercessors for melee anyway, and has 3 more shots with 1 more strength.
Yep.
And the fly keyword.
Yep.
Like, it's better than an intercessor in 3 incredible ways. I don't know. The guys like
how do the Tomb Blades compare to the Scarabs though? How many more points are you paying, and what are you getting for that?
Yeah, it's a good question.
3 Scarabs are 45 points. So for 15 points, my guys are going up. What is it? 5. Well, yeah, they're going up 4 inches of movement base, and since they're core, they benefit from the plus 1 inch move from the king. So potential 5 inches of increased movement. They actually have a gun. Scarabs don't do anything. And they also are T5 instead of T3. They're -1 hit against shooting instead of nothing, and they have a 4-up armor instead of a 6-up armor. They also only give up 6 wounds on no prisoners, whereas a squad of 3 Scarabs gives up 12 wounds on no prisoners. 3 Scarabs is a whole no prisoners point.
That's very funny because when you're comparing those stat lines, you might think, oh, but you get all these stat boosts, but you have half as many wounds. But that's actually a big advantage in this situation, which is what a world we're living.
Yeah, Scarabs get killed when they get hit anyway. So why? What's
the Tomb
point
Blades
of, like,
do too, but they also like take some stuff out before they die.
Yep.
Or like, what was it? Into that Terminus S game, I just had them all 3 castle up around the king, and I'm like, all right, boys, get chapter mastery rolls, and they killed 40 Poxwalkers. It's like, cool.
Yikes!
So
holy moly.
I think they're better. I think that like a squad or 2 of Scarabs is completely fine, but I think if you're taking 3 Scarabs before you take a single squad of Tomb Blades, you're trolling.
I'm inclined to agree after seeing them in multiple games now. Those guys
they're good.
They're good. They're not absurd, but they are very, very strong.
I did finally build my 3 that have been sitting in a closet for like 3 years. So
let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna be painting him later today. But yeah, that's Tomb Blades. They're good in small squads or larger squads. They're very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
so I feel like we've covered most of the small pieces now. Do you want to talk about how they all fit together, run through what the actual list looks like?
Yeah, I'll talk about the list. So the main list I'm running right now is the one I've been playing a lot. It's a Vanguard, a Patrol, and a Supreme Command. It's pre-game move all OBSEC. I have it led by His Eminence, the Silent King, with his Warlord trait. Still debating whether or not that's worth a CP, but I'm very used to playing with it, so I'm going to play with it for right now. I've got the Patrol led by a Chronomancer. He's the guy that gives out the 5 Binvol and charge reroll to a unit every turn. I also have 5 Tesla Immortals for the troop techs, and then I have, I think just across the army, 3 squads of 3 Tomb Blades with the Particle Caster, so it is dirt cheap. And then 2 squads of 6 Scorpex, so they can get that second Basher Blade. 1 squad of 5 Scorpex. 2 single Locus Heavy Destroyers, just for some more anti-tank shooting. 3 Plasmacytes to run around and buff the Scorpex. A Technomancer to heal my models. He also has the Voltaic Staff in my current list, but there's some versions where he doesn't. Still debating whether that's worth a CP. And then I have 2 Catan. I have a Transcendent Catan who starts the game knowing Transdimensional Thunderbolt and Time's Arrow, and he has the Cosmic Tyrant personality, so he may cast 2 powers at the end of the turn instead of 1. I think it is the only one that you should ever pick. And the Catan Shard of the Void Dragon, who starts with his named power, Voltaic Storm, as well as Sky Falling Stars. And that is the list. Yeah. It basically, Tomb Blades are there to go out and do actions early. The Catan are there to drop mortals on people from out of line of sight, as well as just kind of prove to be this really annoying problem your opponent has to tackle. They have to like really dedicate resources to killing them or think about killing them in certain ways. The Void Dragon is there over the Transcendent because I think the list has a big Knights problem. And I thought that, 70 points more to make a guy that can just like punch Knights in melee seems pretty hype. I've played him in a Knights twice, and he has proven to be a problem for the Knights, so that has been great. Yeah, that's the meat of the list. The Scorpex never really run out and initiate the fight. Like I said, I wait for my opponent to cross the midline and then run out and punch them. So, yeah. Any questions about any of the pieces in particular?
Yes, there's one question here about the lack of planes and the fact that they horrify Billy. Do you not want to horrify Billy?
I do want to horrify Billy, but with planes, maybe not so much. I tried the planes list like twice. They're good. Being them, them being core is haha funny. But you can slap My Will Be Done on them, and they can rocket up, and now they're hitting on 2s, which is cool. Or you can keep them nearby the king, and they're hitting on 2s or 3s with full rerolls. Planes are good. They're the best ignore line of sight shooting in the game. Because they do it without taking any of the penalties. I don't love planes that much because I really, really hate having a piece that's like so weak when you go second. There's a lot of matchups where they're just really bad if you go second. They're, I think, 330 points for 2 planes. So it's like I'd have to give up a big chunk of my list for that. So it's like I'd have to give up a Catan, or I'd have to give up like some Scorpex. I've seen like some teams lists. I know ATC happened like right after all these buffs, and a lot of people were playing Necrons there. Like Siegler's list at ATC had 2 Catan and 2 planes. I think that's something you can afford to do in a teams format when you can like be like, hey, I'm gonna dodge the matchups where like these can get shot down turn 1. I guess he had the Deceiver in his list though, so he could put them in the reserves for free. But I don't know. They just feel so light on the ground to me. Playing 2 Catan like and the King already feels like trolling enough. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I cut you off there. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it seems like the weakest. It does seem like a team's list, which is what you mentioned, right? It seems like its weakest matchup is Knights because you have to take the Deceiver to pair with the. Does Siegler have the Void Dragon in his list?
Siegler does not. He has the Deceiver and a Transcendent.
Okay.
At least in the team's list. He was.
You have to take the Deceiver to pair with the planes, so you can put them in reserve. Yeah. So then you're probably not affording the Void Dragon, who's like one of your better tools in the Knights because he just like one of your best tools, or.
Oh no, I agree with you. Yeah, you're definitely not affording the Void Dragon if you take the Deceiver. It's like that's your list is so light on the ground at that point. Yeah. And the planes are good into Knights. They just have to live, And if the Knight player goes, they get shot down instantly.
Yep.
I think they're fine. I mean, you have so much CP, you could do something like Patrol Outrider, Patrol Vanguard, and like look at your opponent's list and kind of do like a risk assessment of, okay, like, do I want to just like, declare the planes are in strat reserves for 2 CP? Like, I'll do that. And then you just kind of are waiting till turn 2 for them to show up. Or you could make the decision of like, hell yeah, I'll go first and like blow this guy off the board. And then, half the time you do. So they're good. I think you could also play a planes list without Catan, like just all the good meat on the ground and then 2 planes. I think that's also a good list.
Yep.
So
that list will just struggle against certain armies a lot more. Like the Catan helps so much against Eldar and Sisters that when they're not in the list, it could be a little scary.
Yeah, the Catan also help a lot in the Chaos, dude.
That's also true.
The planes are good in the Chaos, but some Chaos players have realized that maybe they should put some guns in their list, so they might be able to, because the planes are not tanky. They're T6-3 of armor. Oh, I'm -1 to hit. Oh, okay. Abaddon, give Chapter Master, blow a plane out of the sky. All right, now you have 1 plane. Okay, my 1 plane, kills some things and then dies. I'd much rather have the Catan, at least in my experience. If I find a list that makes me want planes more than Catan, I'll switch it up.
So. Nick asks, what's the hardest matchup you've found with Necrons?
The hardest matchup, I mean, the Imperial Knights game where I straight up had to flip a coin. Like that game was so crazy. I played against Hank. He killed 13 Scorpex turn 1. I'm like, Hank, you've given me 0 other choices. My army is running at you now. And I ran at him and made a less than 50% charge with a reroll and barely clinched it out. I mean, then he countercharged with a Paladin and my King Boss is emboldened. So it's just like, it's so swingy, but it's not like it's swingy for the Knights player, but they can just kind of like trot towards you and be like, all right, dude, pull the trigger or like you're dead. Something I also realized in that matchup too for the next time, I didn't advance my Catan because I'm like, oh, I want to do as much damage turn 1, right? Like, and you can't advance and cast the Catan powers. So much smarter to just advance those guys, get the extra d6 inches of movement, and then you're threatening charges into the Knights next turn. It's like the 4 mortals they're going to do from the other side of the board are not useful compared to the threat of them going in. Something else that Lucas and I have been talking about, struggling with Knights is like a mostly melee army. At least I have some shooting, but yeah. Tagging their baby Knights that only shoot. Like a lot of people bringing the Knights that like just have the 2 guns. Like I had like my Tomb Blades be like, all right, screw it. We're not Ancient Machinery in this game because like this game is about tabling the Knights player like in 2 turns or else I lose. We're just going to have the Tomb Blades run out and like charge some Knights and like sit there and melee with them so that they can't shoot my Scorpex or the King next turn. And that was super useful. And the Catan can do that too. Like when a Catan's in melee with the Knight, it's like, okay, like shoot me in melee. Ooh.
Wait, that's it. Aren't they Titanic so they can still fall back over you and then still shoot normal?
The baby Knights are not Titanic.
Oh, gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, don't take the big Knight. Also, the big Knight slaps in melee because it has like a flat 6 damage weapon. But I'm talking about the Helverins or like the variants that have like just the 2 guns. You can just run up and sit in combat with them because they have like 4 really shitty melee attacks.
Yeah, Moirax and Helverins are all safe to tag.
Yep.
They don't do anything in melee other than shoot you the next turn.
And then it's like, cool. You're basically telling them what they get to kill next turn in the shooting phase, which is your really bad unit of, some trash.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't hear my internet is questionable, so I don't think I heard the Minion thing.
All good.
I had that similar experience up at Charity Hammer when I wrapped a Helvern with 3 Shackles and the Death Leaper.
Oh, so it can't even Desperate Breakout.
Can't even Desperate Breakout.
That's smart.
It was very funny. And then next turn, Death Leaper killed him because he's a beast.
Yeah,
but
yes, he is.
That's
sense. Something you can do to Knights too. I pinned a Knight against a wall to force him to Desperate Breakout because the King was the guy that pinned him against the wall.
Perfect.
If you don't want to shoot the King next turn, like, I guess. But it's like, all right, you got to Desperate
roll
Breakout.
1, buddy.
Well, it's also like, that's 2 CP, and like every Knight stratagem on the big Knight is like 2 CP.
Yeah.
So I basically said, you don't get to use a big Knight stratagem now. So.
Okay. Very cool. So we've talked about what is in the list, what is, and a little bit of what's not with the planes, but what else is not that could? What are you looking at that hasn't quite made the cut for you yet, but might in the future?
That might in the future. I mean, I think this list is pretty like where it's at. There's another version of the list, like I said, that is a Outrider Vanguard, so you don't have to take your really bad Immortals. And in exchange, you can like either beef out the Scorpex squads to take 3x6. You could cut down on the Scorpex squads to take 3x5. And then like it's probably by a few more Tomb Blades. I like the idea of 1 trash squad of 3 that runs out in Ancient Machineries on the far side of the board and dies. I like the idea of 2 like beefed out squads with a few defensive upgrades. You can buy them 3 up armor or 5 up invulns. So that's pretty cool. And what else was in that list? That was pretty useful. I think I could squeak in another Locus Heavy, which is nice. It helps that Knight matchup a bit, and also like killing transports. It's just that the Immortals are so bad that it's like kind of worth the 80 point. Like I'm swimming in CP, so it's almost worth getting the 80 points for something else at the cost of 3 CP, which is hilarious.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the other things that I think I've seen around, but I haven't heard you talk about much yet, are like regular destroyers, Ophidians, Catacomb command barges. If I'm not mistaken, none of those made the cut for you quite yet, but they're definitely seeing a lot of play. What do you think about those units?
Yeah, I think Ophidians, Normal Locusts, Command Barge, Wraiths, and Lich Guard are all like 5 units kind of floating around that are viable. Ophidians are actually something I've thought about, like just straight swapping a squad of Scorpex for a squad of Ophidians. So it's like, yes, defensively they're worse, but they go 2 inches faster. So I can, rather than like wait for you to cross the midline, maybe send a unit in to go punch you really hard. Kind of cool. The issue with those guys is if they get seen by a shooting unit, they die. They are T4 4-up armor, and they do not have access to -1 to wound. So, but yeah, Ophidians can be a straight swap for Scorpex, which is very cool. I mean, you could even do something like take a squad of Scorpex, split it in half, turn it into 3 Ophidians, 3 Ophidians. Seems kind of cool. So they're very much like, out of all those units, they're the closest to appearing in my list. What else do we say? Normal Locusts are fine. I've played them in like a version of the list, and the issue with them is the D3 damage. The Strength 6 is great. The AP3 is great. The profile is good. They got 3 shots. Like, they innately reroll 1s. You can like give them Chapter Master rerolls. You can give them +1 to hit. You could spend a CP for 6 to hit auto wound, which is like maybe better than the 2 CP for full wound rerolls. They benefit from the stripping cover. The issue is just the D3 damage. Like, you want to shoot them at all these 3 wound things in the game right now, like Terminators, Possess, and like also like Knights. If you shoot them at like a baby Knight, it's like -1 damage. Like, shooting into -1 damage with D3 Warriors, shooting at those guys is a nightmare. If you roll a 2, it's basically a 1. I mean, it is a 1. So if those guys had like consistent damage output, they'd be like, oh, top notch. But the D3 damage is still so swingy. There's one game I'm like, all right, Anthony, I got like 7 CP. I'm just going to throw 4 into these destroyers and let's see what happens. Because like, he failed the prayer on his big brick of Terminators. I killed 2 Terminators because I kept rolling 1s on the damage. It was the saddest thing. And I'm like, I do not like this unit that much. Great at killing 2 wound guys, but the army does not struggle with that. So I think it's fine. Try them if you like them. I don't love them. But considering them. What else we got? Command Barge. Yeah. Command Barge is cool. He's a lot of points. He's like 150 or 145. He kind of amounts to just being this. He in my experience with like the old list I played back in February and March, he can like hold down a flank because he's this like tanky obsec character. You really do want to buy him like the Voltaic Staff, though. Like, you have to spend a CP on him to give him whether Voltaic Staff or Void Reaper, because like base War Scythe or Staff of Light on this guy is terrible. And then like back in the day, you used to give him Enduring Will, the -1 damage Warlord trait, but like you might not anymore, like depending on how much CP you have floating around. He's okay. I don't think he really helps with any of your hard matchups that much, though. Like, he doesn't really do much into Knights. He doesn't do much into Rush. He just dies into Rush. So he helps the matchups you're already good at, I think, which is cool. And he helps out with Code of Combat. But in my opinion, the games you can take Code of Combat in, like the King can do it just fine alone. He doesn't need the Barge to help out. So that's my opinion on the Barge. It's good. If it dropped like 20 points or 30 points, like I'd be like, oh, Barge. But he's just a little too expensive at 150. That's 5 Scorpex right there. So no thank you.
And what about my boys, the Lich Guard?
The Lich Guard are really cool. I know Marshall Peterson won LSO with 20 Lich Guard. They basically swap out for the Catan. They're 25 points a model now, so 250 points for 10. They have a decent defensive profile. They're like T5 Vanguard vets, T5 2-up, 4-up, which Krons are really lacking for an invuln. Something that like is a big of a bummer about the Scorpex is they just are T5 3-up armor. Maybe they have the 5 invul from the Chrono. Maybe they don't. So what's nice is your opponent goes like, all right, I'm gonna like rocket in some trade unit to kill these squad like Lich Guard. And then if you spike your 4-ups and go, what's up, idiot? I didn't die. And then like you res 3. I know Marshall was running them with the Reanimator as well, so they'd reanimate on 4-ups instead of 5-ups, and he also had a Resorb in his list, which Resorb's pretty good if you're running 1 or 2 wound models, not great if you're running 3 wound models. Yeah, so I think they're decent. I do think that they're just like kind of like a screening / punchy unit that goes out and like is this wall forward that says, hey, we're this wall you have to get through while our Scorpex like putter behind. I like the Catan more, in my experience. But the Lich Guard are just kind of like a little less cute and just kind of, all right, stats. But I do think a lot of armies can stat check the Lich Guard, is my worry. I mean, they did just win a big tournament, though, so who knows?
You can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but the issue I see with Lich Guard is a classic reanimation problem where, like, if they're allowed to use their reanimation rule multiple times, they feel amazing.
Yep.
But if your opponent just has a unit that can go in and one-shot 10 Lich Guard, which, like, not everything can. Like, those guys are pretty tanky. But as soon as your opponent does have a unit that goes in, it's like, okay, well, these are just a bunch of points in the hole that are, because they move 5 inches a turn, they're never going to get the first blow in.
Yeah, I mean they move 7 now because you got Sudden Storm and the +1 move from the King.
Sure. I
They're
mean,
just basically Eldar, so that's cool.
yeah.
But yeah, they never. I mean, they don't solve the problem of going out and hitting your opponent first, like you said. They do just sit there and wait to get hit, and then they either soak. It's weird because they're more expensive than the Scorpex by like 100, almost 100 points. But the Scorpex hit way harder than them, so it's kind of like you're paying some extra points to protect your Scorpex, is what the Lich Guard are, is in my opinion. And sometimes the dice spike in your favor, and then they come back, and your opponent just wasted a whole trading piece. And I think that's the idea behind the Lich Guard. So, Wraiths are pretty similar to T5, 3-up armor instead of 2-up armor, but like, 2-up armor is basically useless these days if you don't have armor contempt. So the Wraiths are another like T5 thing with 4-up invuln. They're much faster than the Lich Guard. They go 14 inches if they have the proper move buffs. They go 12 normally. Their weakness is hitting on 4s. Raids are another like screening / board control unit that can do some okay punch. But I remember in my old lists back in February, I played 12 Wraiths, 3 squads of 4, and they were very strong. Being able to like muck up my opponent's side of the board while my Scorpex kind of advanced side of the board uncontested. So I'd consider some Wraiths again. Downside to Wraiths, very hard to reanimate. They're not very well. They don't receive reanimation buffs well because they're 3-wound models. So
they also don't hit very hard.
They do not. Yeah, the Lich Guard can hit pretty hard. I think if you're running Lich Guard, you need to run like a Barge, or at least a Lord, because they have access to a stratagem called like Honorable Protectors, which is 1 CP. If there is a noble unit from your dynasty within 3 of the Lich Guard, the whole squad gets +1 attack. And the King is not from their dynasty. He's a Zarakan. So you'd need another noble of some kind to access that stratagem. And now they're 40 attacks at 631 with +1 strength for a CP, +1 strength, Hungry Void. It's not bad. Hitting on twos, full wound rerolls, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely carve through some dudes.
Is there any way to push that AP past 3?
Nope.
But they're still full wound rerolling with the King, right?
They are full wound rerolling with the King, yeah. Which they're probably going to be nearby the King. There is technically a way. The second half of the Hungry Void directive or protocol is 6s to wound or additional AP, but I don't know why you'd ever take that over +1 strength. Very rare situations in which you do.
I mean, the 5 to 6 cutoff might not be that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. If you're going up against like T3, yeah, maybe the extra AP is probably better.
Or T4.
Yeah, if you have full wound rules for sure.
Yeah.
All right. That is a lot of Necron stuff. Anything we want to cover?
Do you want to talk about plasmacytes real quick or no?
Sure. Give us the spiel.
Goofy
old plasmacyte.
Yeah, plasmacytes are funny. They're 15 points. They're a 1-wound model that gets Lookout Sir if they're nearby destroyers. At the start of the charge phase, your charge phase or the fight phase, they can buff a squad of destroyers, giving the whole squad +1 strength and attack. On a 1, it kills 1. Big sad. But it's a ludicrous buff. Something else about this thing, since it's a separate unit, it can charge before the Scorpex, so it can soak Overwatch. It can also fly in and base a character to block heroics. Very strong. In my opinion, you need one for every Scorpex squad. Or at least, I think the number I kind of settled on was number of Scorpex squads -1 is minimum plasmacytes you should bring. They're crazy. At least they can't do action.
They're 15 points, aren't they?
They're 15 points, yeah.
Yeah, you can find room for all 3 of them. Take all 3. Get out of here.
I'm taking all 3. I'm seeing some people take 0, though, and I'm like, you should take 1.
I believe those people are crack, as we say.
They are on the good shit. 0.
I'll have what he's having. Oh, man.
They're good. They're funny. Something else I've talked about on the show before back in the day, and I will talk about it again because crons are good. Some funny little thing you can pull off with the plasmacytes is at the start of your opponent's fight phase, you can buff a Scorpex squad. And if you're the one, it kills 1. You might be like, why are you doing this? Well, because in the following command phase, you can resurrect a Scorpec, and you can resurrect it 4 inches closer to your opponent now. So there you go. You just gained 4 inches of movement. Now you're going 14 instead of 10. Very fun.
It's an apothecary that triggers randomly.
Yeah, what is it? It's a reverse chaplain, is what I was saying. It's a chaplain that doesn't do anything on a 5 through 6, but on a 1, it does something cool.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Reverse chaplain that triggers in your opponent's
it.
fight phase.
What a dumb interaction. I love it.
Yeah. I had a practice game into Admech where I got it twice in one turn, and Hank was like, I concede at that point. It was, yeah, even one of them would have been good. And I'm like, oh, I got it twice. All right, cool.
Do you have two different guys that can res?
3, blade hands, activate.
You might be like, why? The Technomancer resurrects one model, and for a CP, can resurrect another model from another squad.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Spice.
Amazing.
Very fun. So that's Necrons, guys. They are fun to play. I will say, going from the, like I said at the beginning of the show, going from the super aggro army that can dictate all engagements, as opposed to the reactionary army, is interesting. But I do just love giving my opponent a difficult question to answer, and then watching them squirm as they try to figure it out. Also, having a real melee unit again. Oh my god, dude! Harlequin melee was so sad. It was like the 2 characters that slapped, like the Solitaire and the Slapmaster, and then your squad of troops walked in and are like, I'll do 2 wounds, sir. And I'm like, all right, thanks, guys. Whereas Scorpex, I'm like, I'm going to go kill 2 units this turn. And my opponent's like, yeah. And then I do. And they're like, oh my god, what is happening? Very fun. So. Oh, and King. We didn't talk about the King getting core. It's hilarious, dude. Oh, those 1s to wound, out of here. Just reroll them. Not the second time, though. That's illegal.
Very nice. Okay, cool. So it seems like Necrons are in a really commanding spot. Nick is all over that stuff. You got some events coming up. We got, Deckhammer tomorrow?
Yeah, we got Deckhammer tomorrow. We'll see if we can live through 3 rounds. It's supposed to be 97, so we're starting at the crack of dawn to avoid the heat. Yeah. And then we also have the Aegis GT coming up next weekend, which I'm very excited about.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing Nick and his crons at those. Turn the dial over to our green skin brother. What's going on in Orc World?
Well, last weekend. Okay, let me tell you a story. Fable, if you will. Was it last weekend, Nick? When we were at Collins?
Yes.
Yeah, it's holy
2
cow.
weeks ago we were recording a show.
Oh my god, this last week has been okay. Anyway, crazy. So yeah, last weekend we were at Collins, and I played 4 orc games, and I went 1-3 or something like that. Yeah, orcs are kind of lost a lot of games back to back. The damage of the WoG is helpful. The new WoG is really helpful. It really is. The problem is we lost a lot of good scoring options, and other people got incredible scoring options. And orc secondaries are all right, but they're not amazing. I definitely am not the one who should be complaining about secondaries in this call right now. That should be Tyler, and I'm excited to hear about that in a few minutes. But yeah, the orc secondaries are there's one good one, there's one okay one, and the rest are pretty poop. Get the good bits is pretty darn good. And I've pivoted my list to have 30 Gretchen because I think a battalion is where you want to be for Goffs, because you kind of want some CP to do some fighting. You can't really afford a second detachment for a second war boss. But yeah, so I'm in a battalion, and I've cut the Beast Naga boys, and I'm bringing Gretchen because they do get the good bits really well.
Hell yeah.
And then Stomp 'em Good is unchanged. It's all right, matchup dependent. It's not anything to rely on, unfortunately. And the biggest and the best, I have not had success with it. Maybe I'm too aggressive with Gauskell. Maybe it's a better secondary when you don't have a targetable character that can die in just 3 phases. Basically, the biggest and the best is do cool things with your Warlord. And every time I've taken it with Gauskell, he's either failed to kill a unit, or he gets 2 points, 2 rounds by sitting on a midfield objective and then dies, and it's 4 points. Just have not had success with it. If orc players have had success with it, definitely let me know how that's happened, because I'm curious how I can make it work, but I don't see a way right now. So yeah, the biggest and the best was kind of a flop, and then Green Tide is okay. I've been taking that a couple games. My understanding is that Gretchen score it because they have the orc keyword. So if you have 10 Gretchen, 1 on a midfield objective and 1 in your home field objective, that gives you 2 points and 3 on Get the Good Bits. That's a solid combination. That doesn't take any of your fighting pieces out of the fight. It's just Gretchen that go and do an action and sit in your backfield being shitters. So yeah, I don't mind that at all. That's a decent secondary, especially because Stranglehold is gone. Stranglehold being gone is sad. But yeah, change the list up a little bit, bring in more Gretchen, bring in more tech pieces. The Smash a Squig is in. The Big Mech with KFF is in because I need to survive Meltaguns. And yeah, I'm still relying on Gazzy and the Mega Knobs. I thought about some lists that didn't have Mega Knobs because lately they've been kind of flubbing on me a little bit, but just the thought of not having AP3 and melee en masse is not an appealing one to me. So yeah, they're staying in for now. Might try something other than Wagons and Megas if this continues to not pan out, but I do think it is the way forward. And albeit last weekend I played against Sisters twice and Imperial Knights twice, so like 2 very challenging matchups for orcs. So not surprised that I didn't do very well, but that's where I am with the green-skinned fellows. Any questions about where I'm at, guys?
Yeah. We got a question. Any interest in maybe slipping a wizard back in there if you're feeling down bad for secondaries?
Sorta, but I mean, yeah. I guess a weird boy would be good if I'm going to the middle anyway, and I just cast buff powers for 2 turns, and then I.
Dude, what about a war boy?
For 13.
That guy can also shoot.
No, absolutely not. It improves my secondary game. Into psychic matchups, it's a net null because I don't get Abhor the Witch.
Sure.
So in some matchups,
but like,
what?
How often are you Abhor? It's just T-Suns at this point, right?
Grey Knights.
It's in Grey Knights.
It's way better in a Grey Knights than T-Suns.
Into both of those matchups, it's an auto take because any kill secondary where I can get more than 10 points, I'm taking it. Is where my list is at.
Sure.
So Abhor is an auto take. So into like some of the tougher matchups, yeah, I can go to the middle and cast Warp Ritual and hope they don't have a deny.
I think it's a meta call. I think you have to like pay attention to who's playing what in our meta.
That guy's also mega squishy, so you kind of need to buy him the 4-up Invuln half damage relic, and that's unappealing right now because I'm starting with 2 CP and that feels light.
Do you?
What?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah?
That guy dies to like 5 Seraphim otherwise. He's 6 up armor.
Yeah.
What about the other Psyker character?
Yeah, we got Christopher Dukes asking about him.
The War Boy?
Oh, the third one, dude.
The Kill Rig?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, if you like transport capacity 10 with Beast Snagga boys, go ahead. I mean, if it's working for you, go for it. I'm glad it is. The Beast Snaggas were the first thing cut from my list post Nephilim. I tried 20 of them out for a while. They were okay. I didn't really think they were that amazing, so I cut them. So at that point, you're just taking the kill rig for the actual model, and I've already been over why I think the wagon is better.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it could really help my assassinate game plan into you.
What a missed opportunity it was to not put the War Boy on a Squig. How freaking cool would that have been?
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, let's do a Squig Psyker.
Right?
Like a War Boy on Squigosaur would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I want that model now. I want the Squig to be all like messed up and warped too. That'd be sweet.
Oh, for sure.
You like belch green fire at people.
I'm not a fan aesthetically of the Squighog boys. I think they're a little derpy looking, but the Squig characters are cool. So the War Boy on a Squig definitely would have looked pretty sick.
Dude, let's talk about, I mean, it's not like a crazy combo, but the Angie Boss V2 that we came up with.
Yes, Angie Boss is one of my favorite models from 9th edition so far for orcs. And for those uninitiated, this was kind of back before we had our podcast, but the original Angie Boss was a Goff War Boss. I was running him when the Codex first came out last fall, so about a year ago now. He's a Goff War Boss with the 5-up Feel No Pain +1 damage relic, the B-side mantle. That's kind of a staple. But then he also had the generic Warlord trait for +1 attack, +1 strength. So because he's a Goff, this guy goes to, and this was in the Ramshackle meta, so being strength 8 was super important. He's a Goff and he's charging, so he's strength 8. And he's got 5 base, 1 for the Wog, 1 for his weapon, 1 for his Warlord trait, 1 for his relic. So this dude has 9 attacks with exploding 6s that are strength 8. So that was the OG Angie boss. He was super cool because then he also had his 3 little squig jaw attacks. So this guy slapped. The new Angie boss needs to get around Armor of Contempt. So you take the Goff Warlord trait, which instead of +1 attack and strength is +1 attack and AP. And the new Wog gives you +1 strength. You're still getting up to strength 9. Or sorry, you're still getting up to strength 8, and you still have your 9 attacks. And now they're AP 3. So this guy's pretty cool. He, unlike the biker boss, who, you know, he's toughness 7, 5-up invuln, reasonably hard to kill, but it's an extra layer of defense when you throw on 5-up feel no pain and -1 damage. The squig boss, unless you're a serious like damage dealing unit, he's not going to die to something that just wants to try to snipe a character. He's going to take like 2 wounds. So he's pretty cool, and he's definitely very angy, which makes me very excited.
Yeah, dude. 9 attacks,
for a little
8,
while,
3,
right?
2, with 6s explode, and then 3 attacks at 8, 4, 3, with 6s explode and 6s to wound or 3 mortals.
Yeah, it would be. Those are actually strength 9 on the charge, I think, because I think both Goffs and the Wog works.
I think the one just gives +1 strength characteristic. Or is it just +1 strength on attack?
I don't know. It might be characteristic. Either way, 8 or 9, he slaps in melee.
Yeah, this guy's cool. And then he's T7, 9 wounds, 4-up, 5-up, -1 damage, 5-up, feel no pain. He's cool.
Fight on death access.
Yeah.
Boy,
He's like a little mini Gaz, dude.
Yep.
So. Yeah, dude is a Carnifex.
Yeah.
Big set. If the Beast boss was able to give normal orcs +1 to hit, I think this guy would already be in your list.
Yeah.
The big issue is he has a cool +1 hit aura that only affects Beast Snega characters and core.
Yeah, the war boss tier list in my head anyway, and other folks can definitely weigh in, because I'm not an authority on this. I'm just someone who has some experience, is war boss on bike, because Brutal of a Cunning Killer Claw is just insane. And then beast bosses just below that, and then a whole tier below is like mega bosses and foot bosses, just because you already have enough stuff that moves 5 inches and hits like a freight train. Unfortunately, that lower tier of war boss and mega boss are the only ones that can give +1 to hit, which the mega knobs really like. So trying to get that plus...
at?
What's that?
Where the Squigosaur at?
It's right below the biker boss.
Oh, he's in the same tier as the regular beast boss.
No, the regular beast boss is.
I think the beast boss is also in the bottom tier.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it's biker, squig, and then everyone else on
characters.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, the foot characters are the one that give +1 to hit to mega knobs and other orc infantry, which is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah. Speaking of tier lists, there's someone in the chat asking what your take on the Art of War tier list is. Have you seen the orc tier list? I heard it's very controversial.
I haven't looked through the whole thing. I heard they wrote battle wagons down there in B tier, which I think is a grudging. And they put kill rigs in S tier. I mean, it makes...
What?
Yeah, yes.
Oh my god!
I think that's a little goofy. I think if they... I don't mean to throw shade, but I feel like if they played more than a couple of games with orcs and tried 3 wagons instead of just 1 bone breaker, they would really like the wagon.
Playing 1 bone breaker? What is happening?
Jack's list is 2 kill rigs and a bone breaker, which is cool, but it's expensive.
Just play a battle wagon. It's like 30 points cheaper, right?
Is a battle wagon worse than a kill rig / bone breaker when you don't factor in points? Yes. But is it worse when you factor in that it's like 60 points cheaper? No. Like battle wagon's hella better.
Yeah, how much more is a bone break over a wagon?
It's like I think it's 30 points or something like that.
30 points to gain D6 attacks.
Yeah, the kill rig
and also transport capacity -8.
Yeah.
I went tier list into our chat, guys. If you wanna take a peek at it.
The orc tier list.
Yeah,
dude.
There's some stuff in there that I definitely agree with. I think mega knobs are S tier. They have them in S tier. I think they have them in there because of Truck Boys. I think that's reasonable. I think both Goff and Truck Boy mega knobs are at least A tier. Let me find this thing. They put Gaz in A tier. I frankly agree with that. Gazgul
Yeah.
has some amazing matchups. He's an auto-include in the Goth's army.
This isn't
in
about
humble opinion.
everything.
What's that?
I was just saying, just to be clear, we're talking about internal balance of the Orcs Codex, not how it stacks up with anything else out.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
this is in the Orc Codex. I think Gaz is A tier. I think he's pretty auto-include in a Goth's army, but he has bad matchups. He has stuff to do just wet noodles, so he's up there. Yeah, I'm mostly in agreement on a lot of this. There's just a couple things that I think are pretty silly.
Yeah, internally killers are really strong. They're just like not good at all.
For the record, by the way, they did not put the kill. Oh, it's the Hunter rig they put in B tier. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, the Hunter rig makes sense.
A little
in there.
goofy. I agree
with the kill rig might drop. Yeah.
I think the Wazbomb being up there in S tier makes a lot of sense. I think the Wazbomb is super good. Apparently they think the Rocket Truck is still up there.
I think they might be high.
Yeah.
I mean,
What
you
are we
can also
doing?
just like have that thing shoot line of sight and it hits on 4s. Like you don't need to have it shoot out of line of sight. It's what AP3.
Sure, if you see your target and your opponent has no defense, you can shoot him with Strength 5 -3, hitting on 4s.
Strength 5 -3 is pretty good into T4 bodies.
Who's running?
It's
T4
not amazing.
Space brother.
I don't know, like Marine.
I don't think it's very amazing, but
Yeah, I
they've
don't think
obviously
so.
had other experiences. Yep,
Seems pretty okay into sisters.
the average. Like I agree with most of the stuff that's on that list. There's just a couple things that I can tell we've played different lists for long enough that we have a different view of what's good.
Can we get justice for a boy the Runturd?
Where is he? Down there in Garbo freaking tier?
Yeah, puny git. Yeah, there he is.
He's a puny git. All right, let me take a look at chat and see if there are any. Nick says, "Put a psyker in your list." Oh, Nick wants Max wants me to put a psyker in his list, so I stopped taking a 4 into him. Piss off, Max. I like your stupid Grey Knights. I used to run a foot beast boss with big killer boss and B-side mantle and loved him. Yeah, that guy's kind of cool. Only bummer is damage 2. That's a similar problem to the beast boss on Squigosaur, is most of the attacks are damage 2, and that feels pretty bad. Art of War also never plays orcs into the top tier meta stuff. I think that's because played at the highest level, orcs can't beat a lot of the top tier meta stuff. They're too one-dimensional. They can do well. They can beat up on people playing really good lists that don't exactly know how to pilot them correctly, but I feel like played at the optimal level, orcs are a little bit challenging to do super well with. Gaz not having a sweep is a huge insult. Yes. It's fine if he doesn't have a sweep. I like that in my head, it's super thematic and orky that he's very good at hitting some things and terrible at hitting others. It's like a classic orc dilemma of like, we just forgot how to do this one thing right, which is super fun and orky. But don't make him 300 points if he doesn't have a sweep. Like if he kills 2 Harlequin troops, which is like the math, 2 or 3, don't make him 300 points. That's stupid.
Oh, she did a headbutt, dude. On the
He
charge.
should. That's his thing in all of the books. Is he just headbutts everyone to kill them?
Like you could, even if you wanted to make it like less powerful and more thematic, like make him do a headbutt if he didn't kill the unit he's fighting.
Make it a
Like, all right,
stratagem.
here's my finishing blow. Bonk. You know, like
Yeah.
sure. If you don't want to make him do mortals in the charge, like just have him do that. It's funny.
Anyway, Gazgul's fine. He's definitely not the thing that needs fixing in the workbook.
He could be like 20 or 30 points cheaper.
He could
He
be,
could,
but
he could be as much as Vol.
he could be cheaper. But I'm not going to be Nick and complain about the king when he's been buffed 4 times in a row.
I'm not complaining about him anymore, dude. Dude is crazy.
Good. That guy's stupid.
Yes.
All right. Should we do a quick bug interview? What are your thoughts?
Oh,
on
sure.
Bug,
We can. My
Yeah, we can
internet
give you
is-
more time next week when your internet isn't.
Yeah, basically, tabling people is cool, but it doesn't work, so I don't like it.
Sure about that.
I am playing. My current thing that I'm most excited about right now is a Behemoth Force Test, and I'll go in super depth. I think probably next week and talk about what I'm excited about for it, and I'll hopefully have a rep or two. But I don't know if I'll have a rep or two. Anyway, I'll talk about what I'm so it does. But the like headlining features are double covered Tyrant Guard are fantastic. Watch on the YouTube. I came up with this concept a while ago, and I first put it on the table at Charity Hammer. I played into John Lennon and the Bug Off, and like it was very bad because that list needed some tweaks, and more importantly, like couldn't score secondaries. And John built a list that could score secondaries, so he won the game. It's more complicated than that, but it honestly isn't. So I told everyone about it. It was crazy, and I got our buddy Nick V excited about it. He went up and took a version of it to play against Colin on stream. They did a bit rep. That list is not quite what I had envisioned, but it has some cool parts. And then Colin, this was like an accident. He wasn't list tailored. Just happened to decide to take custom Eldar with Army-wide ignores cover.
I think that's the good one.
Is that the good one? Is that what people are playing now?
It's either Hail of Doom or Children of Prophecy ignore cover, I think.
Yeah. So he played into that.
The only ignore cover armies in the game, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a horrible matchup. And also so it's I don't think
that's ignore cover.
Particularly well. Pardon?
Oh, Reds just natively ignore cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Sisters is a different. Anyway, we can talk about this list and its matchups and whatnot later. What I'm trying to say is that game is out there if you want to see it, but I don't think it's a great representation of what the archetype can do. And also, I'm not playing that archetype either. I'm playing Forces. That all being said, that's very exciting. The secondary game is out of tools that GSC has access to is crazy. I constantly forget about just how many wacky nonsense. Like, y'all remember Excavate?
Yeah.
Oh, what the heck is this?
It's a 20-point pregame upgrade that goes on any unit in my army. If that unit deploys in Deep Strike, then at the start of the game, I pick a terrain feature on the table, and it loses cover and dense and gains difficult.
This is the GSC one, right?
Yeah, it's GSC, yeah.
It's still obscuring, though, right? It doesn't get rid of the obscuring.
It doesn't get rid of obscuring, but it gets rid of light and heavy. Huge.
And difficult ground.
It makes it difficult ground.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So a lot of times, especially on player place, people are windmill slamming their big ruin players to stand in the middle of the table, and suddenly you're like, "Yep, that's cool. You do that. I'll go ahead and not care." So that's fun. 3-inch deep striking is fun. There's a lot of wacky shenanigans. There may be flamers back in the list. It does a lot of cool stuff. So that's all going on. But yeah, it's a weird time to be a bug player. Because again, you can still warrior spam and kill people, and that's really cool. But that's just like not what I want to do. So what's exciting about this list is because the Tyrant Guard are such chonksters, like it allows me to full rush a lot of armies, and also like at the end of the day, the Tyrant Guard are just like a temporary screen to get my Hive Tyrant to midfield to fight instead of fighting from the backfield, while the GSC are doing everything else. So it's a lot of like, I'm going to score all my points, and in the meantime, you have like 3 different have all the wacky nonsense to try to solve all of your problems.
Are you still taking the Reaper Flyrant in that list?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's mandatory.
Good.
Swarmlord was in that list for a minute, and I think he's in Nick's list as well. And he's really fun. I still love him. I think OBSEC, Raveners as well are both insane. But I've got Deathy with the OBSEC 5 and Warrior C stuff. Like, there's enough OBSEC to go around without it. And Reaper Flyrant is just too big of a threat to leave at home right now. So he's still in there.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, you can definitely correct me if you're wrong, Tyler, but I kind of feel like Swarmlord was an unfortunate casualty of being a Hive Tyrant chassis, where the Hive Tyrant was probably about, how much did he go up? 20 points?
They all went up 20 points.
So, like, the Hive Tyrant, the Winged Hive Tyrant probably should have gone up 20 points. Like, that guy was a little
easily, maybe 30.
But the Swarmlord, really? Like, a unit that was fine, reasonable, taken in some lists. I don't think he should have gone up 30 points. So it's a bit hard to cram him into lists, I feel like. I
think the fact that he's not a Supreme Commander is like more offensive now than ever. He's the motherfucking Swarmlord, but yeah, I get that balance-wise it'd be annoying. But man, I also want to love the Turvagon. I keep trying to fit her in and out of lists. We'll see if that happens. But she's bopping around. Yeah, there's a lot of bits and bobs running around, and I don't want to get too in the weeds because I don't trust that I'll be able to. But it's exciting, and it's very different. So we'll see. The big headline news, though, that I do want to make sure I announce here is that, like, one of the reasons that I'm making this pivot is that we talked in our second ever episode about how important goal setting is to sort of establishing success in this hobby, and I have decided to set the fresh goal. Enough events left this season to put a good run at best in faction forces of the hive mind, which is very attainable. There's not a ton of people playing forces at top tables out there. It's a lot of people playing mono Tyranids, which I totally get, and I'm not super interested in competing with a lot of that. So I'll go back into my little niche and see if I can do some fun stuff. I've got a GT coming up in 2 weeks, and then we've got a bunch of stuff coming up in the fall. So I'm thinking it's going to be a good time. But I'm getting ready for next week will be quite a jank tank of an episode.
I'm excited. I think Forces is like right up your alley. Like it's just enough power to keep you in the game against other like bully codexes, but it's also like enough tricks that I feel like you're really going to be excited about figuring it out and trying to do all the shenanigans you always do. Man, I love the shenanigans. They're good. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I think if I try just warriors for a while, I would get bored of that very quickly. So I'm sort of preemptively trying other stuff. But yeah, I mean, I got the drill squad back in the list. I got the Kelemorph back in the list. There are fights lasts in the army. Oh, it's a lot of fun.
How many fights lasts?
Mass Hypnosis, Venom Thropes, and Death Leaper. He's a pseudo fight last. But yeah,
no interrupt. Yeah.
So should be a good time. I'm also we're going over to 4 Emperor, so I'm going to have Vect again, which it's beautiful. Very excited for that. Your Scorpex can do -1 to wound exactly once. Thank you very much.
Is it? It's like the new.
It's new Vect, yeah.
Dark Eldar Vect, where it goes up
Yeah.
by CPU. Ah, cool. I like that. That is really good.
Yeah. In a way that's almost another like interrupt denial in some circumstances.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Yeah. So I have Vect and Death Leaper in the same list, which is hilarious. And then there's all sorts of psychics. I've got the Broodlord back on the list. He's great because you need forward deployers these days, and someone's got to be my action monkey. Still got
which version of the Broodlord? The Forces one or the Nids one?
No, the Broodlord, not a Patriarch. Because the Broodlord forward deploys the Patriarch deep strikes. And I know that I could go get there's like a couple different ways in GSC that I could get. Comes to mind. I played with them a lot, but like I just don't like them. And also, I have to take a second caster anyway in Nids to be my my action monkey caster. And I feel at that point I'd rather spend 20 points upping a Neurothrope to a Broodlord instead of buying a whole other unit that I don't really want in the first place. So we'll see how this all works out. We'll go into the details of how I think it's going to work later. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Very cool.
Good stuff.
I'm excited for you, dude. I'm excited we all are tinkering again.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing is set in stone right now. The meta this really is the Wild West meta. And I'm very happy things go down. We've also got WTC coming up in a couple weeks. That's going to be a ton of fun. They're not streaming, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever. But here we are.
Is this the one that's it's in Belgium, right?
It's in Belgium, yes.
Wow, that's kind of sad that they're not streaming anything.
Yeah, but we'll be able to follow results at least and see what's going on and talk to people. So that'll be a fun time. Like I said, we got RTTs and GTs coming up. Should be some good tournament coverage soon. So yeah, you can be looking forward to this, that, and the other thing coming down the pipeline. Anything else you guys want to mention before we sign off on what I guess was a slightly shorter than usual episode?
We can talk about 40K all day, so I'm not surprised that it was an hour and a half. But hope you guys had fun, and I definitely did. And I'm excited to talk about some games in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, well, with that all being said and done, I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
And I'm still Lucas.
And we'll see you next time.
Adios, amigos.